Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 515, World Cup Chaos. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Eddie. Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah, things are going pretty well. Been a good week. You're just staring at me now. You were expecting more detail in my response?
Or maybe just be a good friend and say, how was your week?
Oh, I'm so okay.
Sorry, it doesn't revolve around Eddie. This isn't the Eddie podcast.
Well, when you take on the host, element at the beginning, then you've got to move the ball. That's your responsibility to keep pushing the boulder up that hill. Frank, how's your week been? Please give me an inspiring response now.
Oh, my weekend has been
No, not your weekend.
Phenomenal.
I didn't ask your weekend. Your week.
Oh, my week has been quite lackluster, except for my 8 to 10 a.m.s and 12 to 2 p.m.s, where I have been having almost all of my work screens covered in the World Cup matches, it being the last matches of the group stage, and they've been very exciting for the last few days. It's gone down to the wire in a few of the matches. It's almost gone to the fair play rule in a few of them, so it's been quite interesting.
Yeah, the third set of fixtures threw up, in almost every group there was something to play for in the final, something significant to play for in the final, 10 or so minutes. So that's really all you can ask for. Hopefully FIFA learns from that, because right now for the next World Cup, it's the proposed shift to 3 team groups. And I think that would probably remove most of the excitement from the group stages. So
yeah, that would be such a bad, especially after watching this tournament so far, how exciting some of the last 15, 20 minutes of the matches going on simultaneously have been. I think it would be a big mistake to switch it.
Yeah, it would turn it probably more into a little bit of a procession. You'd have the occasional surprise group result, but if you're putting teams of 3 and 2 of them go through, you would think most of the time that the sort of expected top two teams in the group would manage to find their way through. So it would be a shame. And they have said that there is a possibility that they sort of reconsider the format. They are shifting to a larger World Cup in terms of the number of teams. That will happen no matter what, but they may change the numbers in the group, which hopefully they do.
Yeah, and I think since as of recording, we've just finished the end of the group stage. I think it'd be nice to go through kind of quickly each group and kind of say who's advancing, and if you think, we can touch on the predictions you had and kind of what went wrong maybe, and then we can then move forward to the bracket and kind of pick apart the bracket a little bit and where we think it could go.
Yeah.
So in Group A, you had Netherlands and Senegal advancing and Ecuador and Qatar not. I think that was pretty much predicted by both you and former guest of the podcast, Ollie.
Well, he's still a guest. He hasn't died. Yeah.
I love doing that.
That kind of went to plan, I would say. One of the few groups where we really got the order in. Not only, I would say, not just the order, but the kind of the way the matches themselves went. Correct.
Yep. And I think Group B, pretty similar too. Both had England, USA. And you were on record as saying Wales is complete shit.
Dog shit, I said. Dog shit. I wanted the
dog shit. Sorry.
And Wales are dog shit.
Okay.
The World Cup has proven this.
Okay. And then in Group C, it went Argentina and Poland advancing, with Mexico and Saudi Arabia not. And that was one that really went down to the wire.
Yeah.
And it was very, very exciting. I was actually at lunch, and the place I was at lunch had the Mexico match on the Spanish network, and it was pretty intense. I didn't know what the hell they were saying, but they were really into it.
Yeah, and that's the first. This is the first group where in our World Cup preview where Ollie and I disagreed. I had Argentina and Poland going through. He had Argentina and Mexico. So that went down to the wire, but in the end, things are about to go off the rails for me in my predictions. But through the first three groups, I nailed the order.
Yeah, and this was the first group where you start getting the announcers who really try and make the tiebreaker scenario seem way overcomplicated than it is, and you get the one of the most annoying comments that the commentators make of the, well, I don't have my degree in mathematics, so it's really not that easy for me to understand this. Like, oh, well, you don't need a degree in mathematics. You just need to know how to read, because it's like 5 fucking rules and you go down the rule. Like, it's not that difficult. And
No,
I think they make it sound crazier than it is. But I mean, I wasn't completely sure. I went on, looked for 10 seconds, and then the rest of the tournament, I knew what the rule was. Like,
no, I don't think it's particularly complicated. And for anyone who follows football on a consistent basis, I mean, they're the same sort of, not tiebreakers, but things you would use to separate teams in any ranking, any table. The Premier League would use most of those ones in exactly the same order in terms of goal difference, goals scored. Like those are the usual separators. It's true that when it got down to the possibility of fair play, which obviously came into play in the last World Cup as well, that was one of the deciding factors.
Yes. It for Senegal, right?
Yeah, it seems a bit arbitrary.
This was going to be my question to you: what you think it should get down to?
I don't love the fair play element, but then I can't think of a good alternative. To me, the only...
What about a replay?
No, you can't. There's no time. So
yeah. What about just penalties?
They're not in the same place.
I know.
Like yes, if the two teams were,
you'd still have to bring them.
If the two teams were playing each other that day, then yes, that's an option. But then you can't have it be it has to either always be the method or it's not. Like honestly, the only thing I kind of maybe like more than fair play is just a coin toss. That's like because everything else
that is fair.
Yeah, I mean everything else people spoken about world rankings being but that doesn't. I don't really love the FIFA ranking system in the first place, but it also then seems unfair that you kind of weight it in favor of the bigger teams in that instance. So I really don't know what you could. Some people have argued shots on target instead of fair play, but then you could just have this descend into some farce where like a team knows in the final 3 or 4 minutes that the tiebreaker is going to be shots on target, and you'll just have teams shooting from everywhere to try and kind of boost a statistical ranking. Like that to me doesn't seem any more logical. And I guess in some respects you could say playing the sort of spirit of the game and not breaking the laws of the game as much should be rewarded. And it is so rare that it comes down to that fact. I don't. It's a good opportunity. People want to follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, suggest alternatives that they prefer. But I did think about it the other day, and I couldn't come up with something that I really liked.
Yeah, I mean, the other question I had for you is, are you more of an offensive or defensive minded person? Because right now, the third tiebreaker in that set would be greatest number of goals scored. And I think there might be some people out there that might say, well, what about least goals conceded?
No, I think you have to reward more attacking play. I think there is a difference. It's sort of arbitrary, right? I mean, is it better to draw 5-5 all or 0-0? Like I guess you've definitely provided more entertainment, so it encourages the.
So you get rewarded. Are you not entertained? You get rewarded for your Russell Cronus?
A little bit. I mean, you're putting a rule in place that encourages teams to play in the way you'd probably want them to. Again, do you want teams going into the final match where they think to themselves, well, we really don't want to concede? Like, this was always the issue with the away goals rule, is that it did at times remove an incentive to attack because the danger of conceding was great. Sort of the risk of the punishment for conceding was greater than the reward for scoring. And so I think as long as you have the goals scored being more heavily weighted as a tiebreaker, you at least incentivize teams to go on the front foot. And I guess the other thing you'd say is, in a way, it does also put teams in a position late in games to change their fate. Because if it's goals conceded, what can you really do? Like, it's now entirely in the other team's hands. You know, if you're not playing them and it's like, well, our two matches are going on simultaneously, we're currently going out because this team has conceded fewer goals, but you can't do anything. Like, you can change nothing in your game. You just have to hope that they start conceding goals. I mean, I guess you can shift your own goal difference, but if you see what I mean, like, it kind of removes any ability to control your own destiny in that regards. Whereas if you are rewarding more goals scored, you put teams in a position where they think, okay, there's 10 minutes left, we have to score goals.
Yeah, and then I think from there, this is where a lot of people's brackets start to collapse. And that's Group D, where you have France, who I think most people would have put top, but then you had Australia sneaking in, who, Eddie, I don't think you said dog shit, but I think you did say
I was
that
pretty.
they looked pretty spectacularly
I wouldn't.
bad.
I didn't. Say, I was pretty dismissive. Yeah. I mean, I think I had watched them in several qualifiers. They had to come through the playoffs to get there. I had not been impressed by them. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure I've been particularly impressed with them so far in this World Cup, but they have managed to get there, which is all that matters. And it's impressive. I mean, given the sort of squad of players that they have, I think they're one of there's only a handful of teams that came into this tournament with no players starting for them who play in the sort of the big five leagues. Australia had 0% of their players playing in the big five. And so for them to, the big five being, you know, the major European leagues. So for them to have taken a squad that is not comprised of, you know, high level players from a professional standpoint and get to the knockout stages of the World Cup, it's a real achievement.
Yeah, and then I guess I don't remember if you had, I think you had Denmark, and that was a pretty
Yeah.
disappointing result for Denmark. 1 point, not their best effort.
Yeah. Yeah, I expected Denmark to go through. I wasn't sort of in love with Denmark coming into this tournament, but you know they've got a strong squad. You know, it was one of those where when France beat them, I thought that was a good result for France. Like, I gave more significance to France's performance based on the fact that it was Denmark. And so for them to go out, it's surprising for sure.
So then we get to Group E, and this is, I think, where I would be very surprised if anyone predicted the correct order of this, and that would be Japan winning the group with Spain coming in second and Germany falling just short. And this was another match or another group that went back and forth for those last matches, and that was just crazy. I forget who had it. Someone on Instagram had like the different timestamps through and like how much it was changing of who was first and who was second and who was third, and it was just it was crazy to see how much shift there was in that order. With 1 point, Germany and Spain, and then at 1 point Germany or Spain both not making it, which would have been absolutely crazy. But in the end, Spain gets through. Probably the better looking team over Japan, I still think. But Japan did win the group.
Yeah, Spain, Spain controlled that match. And I think had they needed to win against Japan, they probably would have. You know, there was the brief moment when Costa Rica took the lead against Germany where they had a handful of minutes where it looked as if they were going to at serious risk of going out. Germany equalized fairly quickly. And so I think just, they created a lot of chances and they dominated possession. And I think had they really, really needed to sort of step up a gear, they probably could have, certainly to get a draw. Um, the concern for Spain, you know, is their lack of goals. And their 7-0 win over Costa Rica kind of covered up for that. And there were a lot of people who were trying to, coming into the tournament, a lot of people said the issue for Spain is a lack of a true goal scorer. Then they won 7-0, and there were a lot of people very quickly saying, hey, all of you guys, everyone's idiots. You said Spain wouldn't be able to score goals. Look, they scored 7 in the opening match. But I think against Germany, they missed a number of chances. They missed chances again against Japan. And that's a
2 in their next 2. So a much bigger drop off.
Yeah, and it's more just they get themselves into positions where you can just see they're lacking a goal scorer to kind of be taking up the right positions in the box, to be on the end of chances. Ferran Torres had a number of good chances against Germany, didn't take them. I don't think he's, an out and out goal scorer. Morata is probably the closest thing they have to that. And he started against Japan and scored. They might have to start him in the knockout stages, because otherwise, they get kind of trapped in that situation that City have been in recent seasons sometimes, that they solved by getting Holland, which is, you have all these really, really talented attacking players, but none of them are genuine goal scorers. And so it looks great. You dominate possession, you kind of create some chances, but you need people who just really are there to put the ball in the back of the net. Spain don't have that at the moment, and that could be their undoing. But they're also good enough where they will create enough chances and dominate possession enough that they might be able to overcome that weakness.
Yeah, and I guess speaking of not being able to finish opportunities, Group F saw the number 2 ranked team, according to FIFA, Belgium, not make it past the group stage due to a very lackluster effort in scoring overall in the tournament, but especially in that last match where they needed a win. And instead, you have Morocco, who I don't think anyone probably predicted to win the group, and Croatia second. What do you think about that?
Yeah, another really, really surprising outcome. I think I'm sure there are people out there who maybe had Morocco sneaking through, but the complete order of that group seems
Yeah,
super unpredictable. Also, there's got to be, so in that second half you mentioned against Croatia, Romelu Lukaku by himself had an expected goal outcome of 1.98. So they kind of,
oh my God.
so based on the individual chances he had, basically, XG kind of calculates in that position what percentage of the time would a goal be scored. So basically, with the chances he had, he should normally have scored 2 goals in that second half alone. Morocco, over the course of the entire group stages, only had an XG of 1.35. So Romelu Lukaku should have scored more goals in the second half than Morocco scored in that entire group stages, and Morocco won the group. So
That's crazy.
I'm not always a total believer in XG. At the same time, I do think Belgium were maybe a little bit unlucky. They didn't kind of get the break of the ball a bit against Croatia, and then also Morocco have definitely, benefited from some luck themselves. I think we'll get to that eventually, but I think their luck will run out in the next round.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it is a shame that Belgium are out because, like I said, they are one of the top ranked teams. But at the end of the day, if that's how they're going to play, then what's the point of having them in there? Because for the majority of the tournament, they didn't look that great. I mean, against Canada, they didn't look spectacular. Against Morocco, they lost, and they created chances, but not many. And then in that last match, I mean, yeah, Lukaku had a bunch of chances in that second half, but the first half they had to win a match and they came out flat, right?
Yeah.
And you'd expect more. And I think for me was disappointing. I wanted to ask your opinion on that. When I watch City and De Bruyne's out there, he just seems to always be on the ball, like it. And then when I watched Belgium, these matches, there were gaps of time where I didn't even know he was on the pitch. Like it's crazy to me that you don't run it through him more on the national team than they did. It was, I was very surprised with how little of an impact he made.
Yeah, no, and that's been criticized a little bit on British television. The commentators have noted that exact same thing that you've just pointed out, is just how much less he's involved, and everything at City runs through him. He's the sort of, kind of he's like a quarterback for City in a sense. And basically every attack, Kevin De Bruyne is on the ball at some moment in time. And yeah, against with Belgium, he just doesn't play in the same role. And for, arguably the best midfielder in the world, it seems silly to not have him be more heavily involved. So I think that's probably frustrating for him. I think that's a failure on the part of Martinez. their coach, who I think is probably out of a job. And although he said they'd done themselves proud, that was his. I don't know exactly what he thought the expectations for Belgium were coming into this World Cup, but I don't think there's many Belgian supporters who would have said they did themselves proud in the tournament. But yeah, and it's a shame, right? Because Belgium, obviously a very small country. This is their golden generation. This is pretty much the end of the window for that golden generation, and they won't have a lot to show for it. And to have produced a number of world-class players, and I think at several points over the last few years have had probably the best starting 11 in international football. And all they can really say is that they made a World Cup semifinal once. That's disappointing for them.
Yeah. And then we move on to Group G, where you have Brazil topping it with Switzerland. And out of this is Serbia, who I think both you and Ollie both predicted to go through. But this went exactly the way it went in 2018, when it was Brazil, Switzerland, and Serbia, and Switzerland beat Serbia to be the second one in that group and pretty much played to form.
Yeah, no, I did think Serbia would go through. And the reason I think both Ollie and I thought they would was because of their goal scoring ability. And I guess the thing we didn't see coming, certainly in this final match, was that Switzerland would suddenly find a way to score goals, which is very un-Swiss. They typically either lose or win games 1-0, and they found some attacking flair today against Serbia, which they needed. And so it's not a total shock, but definitely disappointing for this Serbian team, given the talent that they do have. And again, as for these smaller European nations, you aren't going to have that many major tournaments where you do have, several very, very good players. You do have to try and take advantage of it, and Serbia haven't this time around.
And then lastly, you have Group H, where Portugal topped that group, followed by South Korea. And I think this is another one where you both had Uruguay, if I'm remembering correctly, right?
Yeah, we both put Uruguay through. I kind of hesitated there. I was tempted to put South Korea, so I'm not shocked that South Korea made it through.
In exciting fashion again. I mean, this was watching that match and watching them score late, and then them just constantly panning to the fans, who had one of the most panicked looks I've ever seen of a fan base. I've never seen people look at the clock more. It was an exciting finish.
Yeah, they were in a situation where if Uruguay had got another goal, then they would have gone through. So there was all to play for up until the very last. Like if South Korea had conceded or Uruguay had scored, then everything would have changed in that group. I'm happy. I don't. I think Uruguay are such a dirty team and play the wrong type of football. And again, given how much attacking talent they have, that's what I don't like about it. It's like Atletico Madrid when I'm critical of them. You're like a bigger team, more creative, talented team playing as if you were, one of the very sort of lowest ranked teams in the competition. And just the manner in which they play, the way they behave on the pitch, it's just awful. So I'm very happy to.
I guess, I mean, now that you mentioned that, there was a questionable, I guess, no foul in the penalty box against Uruguay in like the 95th minute or so, somewhere around there. That was not called, and Uruguay were very unhappy about that, to the point that they pretty much half assaulted the ref and followed him into the corridor. What do you feel about that? First, was it a foul in your eyes? And two, what do you think of that type of behavior?
No, I don't think it was a penalty. And yeah, obviously I don't like that behavior. I think football overall doesn't do a good job of clamping down on the treatment of referees and officials, and it's less significant at this level. It's just the influence and impact that can have on the amateur version of the game, on how kids play, on how, if you play Sunday league football or whatever, how people play because they see it being done on television. I think, of all the things yeah, it's great. We're doing a better job of, accounting for additional time to make up for time wasting. How about every time you swear at a referee, you get booked? How about only a captain can really talk to the referee? Like, introduced, in a sense, some of the rules that you get from rugby, for example. I think that would solve so
Yep.
many problems in terms of, and it wouldn't take long for players to adapt. A couple of bookings and they'd stop because the only reason they behave in that manner is because you let them get away with it. And that's and it just feels like sometimes we're enforcing the wrong. So you get the end of the and you get Uruguayans crowding around the referee and trying to influence him at every moment of the game, and then you get at the end of the Brazil Cameroon match today a player being sent off because he's getting a second booking for taking his shirt off. Now, he knows that rule and it's right to give him the second yellow, but which one of those are you really trying to eliminate from the game? Players taking their shirts off in celebrations, or people swearing
Oh, I'm not trying to eliminate that in any
or
way.
people swearing at the referee and trying to intimidate and influence officials? Like it's moments like that where you just feel as if, we're focusing on the wrong parts of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't understand why you even at this point are attacking the ref for making a bad call, because there's VAR. There's other people that can also influence this play. So it's not, at this point, it's not just him making a bad call. There are other people who are also having a look at this.
So I guess there's two things. One, maybe you think, look, if we really look upset, maybe VAR takes a closer look. Maybe they look, a little.
But this is after the match, right?
Yeah, but
this was after.
who know? Who knows? I mean, they're just upset at that point. But I think in general, or you think next time around, obviously at the end of a match it matters less. But the next time I go down in the box, the referee might think twice. I'm sure officials would say that they don't, that they can't be influenced by the behavior of players or whatever. But I'm sure they are. So I don't like it, and I do think it's one of those things that needs to be taken out of the game. But it just won't be. We've turned. We've got a sport where the referees like to be the friends of players. They're on first name basis with on a first name basis with players, and just like it's. I think any swearing at the referee, it should be an automatic yellow card. It would be easy. It would stop. The swearing would stop in a couple of weeks, but it's never going to happen. And I guess then my final note just on those group stages, to mention some of those XG statistics. And as I said, I'm not always the biggest believer in XG, but the team that created the most chances in the group stages.
Ooh, can I guess?
Go for it.
Brazil.
No.
Oh.
I'll tell you. I'll give you three statistics. They're all the same team. So this team not only created the most chances, they had the biggest difference in their XG. So biggest net difference between the chances they created and the chances their opponents created. And they also won every one of their matches based on XG.
I don't want to say England, but I'll say them.
No, it's Germany.
Wow.
So again, that's where you see the difference between expected goals and real goals, because obviously Germany, statistically, I guess in that respect, the best team in the tournament so far, and yet out of the group stages.
Yeah. And then the stat that I had, Eddie, for you is, out of the 16 teams that are now going into the knockout stage, of their coaches, how many are of the nationality for the country they're coaching?
Oh, okay. Can I cheat and just bring the teams up to just remind myself? Try and go
Bring
through
the
it.
teams up, yes, but not the teams with the coaches' names.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be super easy. Okay, so we'll go to, if I go, so of the teams going through. So the Netherlands have a Dutch coach. Senegal have a Senegalese coach. England have an English coach. The US have an American coach. Argentina have an Argentinian coach. Poland. Oh boy. I'll say he's Polish, but I'm not certain. France have a French coach. Is this going to be every team has a coach of their nationality? Is this what I'm going to get to?
No.
No. Am I wrong on any of them so far?
You are correct so far.
France definitely have a French one. Australia, I think he's Australian. Japan. Oh, I can't picture who the Japanese coach is. I'll say Japan don't.
They do.
Okay. Spain have a Spanish coach for sure. Morocco. Oh man, I can't picture. It's going to be one team that don't, right? Is this what I'm going to get down to? And I just got to identify who the one team. I'll say the one team that does not is Switzerland.
It is 15 out of 16 teams, and I kind of wanted you to do this because the team that doesn't is South Korea, the last one you would have gotten to. So Paulo Bento is their coach.
Okay.
And this is in stark contrast. So for comparison, in 2018, only 11 of the 16 coaches were of the nationality of the country they were managing.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. It would also be interesting to see how many of them are former players, because I think that wouldn't be all of them, but the statistic would be pretty high on the number of them who had also represented their country previously, because quite a number of them are former professional players. So that's a good statistic to know.
All right, so let's go to the knockout stage. And I guess let's start with the U.S. versus Netherlands. And, people had been asking me what I thought of this matchup the U.S. has. Do they have a chance? And I have to say, in terms of some of the teams they could have gotten that won their group, the Netherlands seems like a pretty fair draw. I do honestly think it's a beatable. The U.S. has the capability of beating Netherlands, as opposed to had you put them up against, France, Brazil. I would still say England if they actually played well. I don't give them much of a chance. But besides maybe, Japan and Morocco, this is a pretty optimal outcome. And had things, what's crazy to think is if, when this first happened, I thought this is going to be the worst team that wins their group, and it actually ends up not being that case. But I still think overall that it's a doable game. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it will be very close.
Yeah, I mean, so from a betting perspective, if you kind of want to look at it in that regards, this is the joint second closest in terms of odds, in terms of the difference between the favorite and the second. So the Netherlands are 4-9 to qualify, and the US are 7-4. So certainly from a betting perspective, the bookies are not ruling out the US chances. Of course, that's also a reflection of how money is being bet, right? And the US across the world has been quite a popularly heavily bet team. So it's not always an indication, right, of actual statistical probabilities of an outcome, but still, it is still a slight indicator. I think the US have a chance. I think if they repeat the performance that they had against England, they'll cause the Netherlands problems. I don't think the Netherlands have been particularly impressive in their group stages. They struggled to create chances. They struggled to score goals. They had flat periods in most of their matches. So I think the US, in a sense, the game plan that they had against England will be able to be perfectly applied against this Dutch team in terms of sort of high press, high intensity, try and just put them, close them down in their own half, put them under pressure, and rely maybe on a slight sort of physical advantage. I don't think they're going to create a lot against the Dutch, but yeah, if they can take, I'm not expecting a huge number of goals in this match. So if they can take a chance, I mean, this goes for every knockout stage, right? And we've seen the importance of taking your chances in the group stages as well, there's usually not that many goals. So yeah, I think the Netherlands will go through. I think they're a little, they clearly have the better team. They have a lot more experience, and that could prove important. But yeah, the U.S. has a chance.
And I think Cody Gapko on Netherlands is the only player to score in each match so far in this World Cup.
Yeah, he's the joint top goal scorer coming out of the group stages with 3 goals. He got each one of those goals in a different match. He's certainly increasing his valuation. He's a highly sought after player in European football. So, he's definitely done his reputation no harm. But, this doesn't look like a Dutch team that is going to score a ton of goals. Memphis is obviously fine again, kind of returning to fitness over the course of the group stages. So I'm sure he'll start this match. The group stages will have helped him to maybe get back.
Will he last?
Help him get into a bit of better match fitness. He's definitely a potential match winner, and I think the Netherlands desperately need him to add some attacking threat. But yeah, and I guess there's some questions over Pulisic and his.
He is cleared to return now.
Okay,
so he looks like he's going to play. Which and I love how he came out and said he didn't get hit in the balls. That's literally his quote.
But yeah, no, I think it should be a good match. It's a good test for both sides. But yeah, I think the Dutch will go through.
Yeah. And then the winner of that will face Argentina versus Australia. And are you changing your opinion on the team down under?
No, I think Argentina must be delighted with how this worked out for them. This is like an extended group stages for them almost. I think it's difficult to imagine how Australia will be able to live with Argentina. And yeah, I expect Argentina to qualify fairly easily from this, even if they were similar to, France against Australia in their opening match. Even if they were to fall behind, I think they'll just be confident that they can score 2 or 3 goals against this Australian team. So no, I don't think they'll cause them too many problems.
And then we move on to probably one of the least exciting matchups in Japan versus Croatia. So Japan, the group stage winner, are they favored?
Oh, you're doing this in draw order, not order in which the matches will be played.
No, in draw. I'm doing this in brackets.
The brackets?
Order, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's Japan versus Croatia is probably the least exciting on paper. I think the Croatians will probably be slightly upset with that fact, given that they made it to the World Cup final 4 years ago. But yeah, it's hard to get too excited about a kind of aging Croatian team and, a Japanese team that did extremely well to make it out of the group stages, but don't possess any real star power. This is the tightest fixture from a betting perspective.
Croatia is favored.
Yeah, which is to be expected. So Croatia are 4-7 favorites to qualify. Japan are 11-8. I would have to give the nod to Croatia with their talent and their experience.
Okay. So going against the Japanese team who won 2 out of their 3 group stages. Matches.
Yeah.
Although arguably I think the one they won, their last one, was a win on paper, but not much else of the statistics were in their favor.
Yeah, and it was definitely one of those instances where they played Spain at the right time in that group. Having that as the third match where Spain had less to play for, probably they don't win that if that's the opening game of their group. So that definitely helped them a bit.
And then we go to Brazil versus South Korea, and this is unfortunately not the Son versus Neymar battle that would have been very nice to see. 2 really nice scorers kind of going head to head, but will that favor Korea in this matchup, not having Neymar there?
It helps.
Will the sun rise on them, Eddie?
Yeah, it helps. I mean, but I I don't know. I mean, Brazil obviously lost today against Cameroon. They created a huge number of chances. It was kind of the Brazil B team anyway. Um, no, I can't see much hope for South Korea in this one. I just think I haven't been blown away by Brazil so far in this tournament. They haven't looked outstanding for the tournament favorites, but they do create chances, and I think they'll score
So,
goals.
so I mean, we talked a lot about Spain creating great opportunities, but not having the ability to finish those opportunities. With Neymar out, do you have as much of a worry for Brazil to not have the players to be able to finish?
Uh, no, because they still have goal scorers in their team. You know, you still got Gabriel Jesus, who's yet to score a goal in a World Cup, let alone in this one. But still, you have Gabriel Jesus. Richarlison obviously scored 2 goals, and including one spectacular one against Serbia. I think there's still goals in their side. It's just the lack of that from a leadership perspective, from as a team. You know, we spoke about it before. Just knowing that you have one of the best players in the world playing alongside you, I think you, that hurts you in terms of that confidence. There's also just that sense of inevitability sometimes that star players bring. It might not be right, but you know, certainly late in games, you just get that feeling of, well, he'll pop up with a goal. Like this is just the sort of moment in which Neymar would score. And even if they're not necessarily more likely to do that than any of the other attacking players in the Brazilian team, you do just you miss out on that, and that can maybe either change your own confidence as a team or maybe increase the confidence of your opponents as games get later and tighter and nervier.
So when I just want to bring this up because when we discussed the group stages, I think both you and Ali said for most of it, it usually plays to form. And as we saw, it did not play to form. And right now, you're once again playing to form. We'll get to the other side of the bracket, but maybe are you going to pick any upsets at all? And if
Um,
you're not, what's a match maybe? Let's wait and we'll wait and say, what's a match you think might. But let's go to the other side now and we'll do bottoms up so we can discuss the last match in a little more detail. Portugal versus Switzerland.
so I guess this would be up there on the list of one of the ones where it's more likely to see a little bit of an upset. But you know, Portugal haven't have looked good in this tournament, but they have looked beatable at the same time. Um, they kind of fall into that debate. Unlike with the Neymar situation, it's sort of like, does Ronaldo hurt them or help them? Whether the kind of very central role that he's playing for this Portuguese team, they might be slightly more dangerous without him on the pitch at all times. But I mean, it feels like we see Switzerland at this stage of pretty much every major competition. We kind of know how it goes, which is they'll be difficult to beat and they'll set their stalls out to defend, and eventually they get broken down and they usually just don't have enough goals in them. Obviously, their match against Serbia today maybe proves otherwise, but I think Portugal will go through.
All right. And then after that, we have Spain, Morocco. I think that should be a pretty short conversation.
Yeah, I think it's, again, similar to the Argentina situation. Spain must be delighted. I mean, to have not won their group in the end, they've ended up with the easier draw, at least in the first round. So they'll sort of feel as if that was a desirable outcome in some respects. And yeah, they should just have too much quality for Morocco.
And then France, Poland.
Similar. I mean, France had a super unimpressive performance against Tunisia, but it was their B team. But I think it did show. Some teams at different moments in time have shown some strength and depth, and when they have rotated players, even Brazil today with their changes, they still looked threatening. There still seemed to be some cohesion between sort of between their players. They still created chances. You did get that feeling that they would have that ability to, if one of their attacking players went out, or if they needed to make a number of changes for a match, that they have the ability to do that and still maintain some form. I'd be concerned as a French supporter that was, it's clear. It's like it's our first 11 or we're in trouble. Like our star players have to be on the pitch. Mbappe has to be playing. Like I'd go so far as to say an Mbappe injury or suspension, France are not contenders to win the World Cup. Like they are that reliant on him in terms of what he creates, the problems he causes for their opposition, and just how much of their play runs through him. And you just saw a serious drop off in quality from their best 11 to their sort of second best 11. Even we'll get on to England afterwards, but England have shown over the course of those group stages that they can rotate fairly heavily in a number of different positions. And if anything, it's difficult to choose what the best options are. Like their headache, Gareth Southgate's problems are positives, I suppose, in that it's like, which one of these players do I pick more than I absolutely need these players not to get injured or suspended? But yeah, I think Poland don't create a lot, and this France team, with their full strength team back in action, uh, will win. I think there is some discussion, some debate going on about the possibility of Benzema returning to the World Cup because they never sent a replacement, so he technically is still in the squad. So if he deemed himself fit, he could reappear at any moment in time if he felt right to do so. You see it discussed on the internet at different moments in time. It's absolutely not a possibility. I mean, when you hear Benzema speak about it, Real Madrid, he's not even returned to sort of training to even start the rehab process. So there's no possibility of him being fit again at any point in the next couple of weeks. But, it does mean for France, they are a very, very good team when they have their key players on the pitch. But if something were to happen to any of those key players, they've got some real issues.
Yeah, and I mean, I think your XG stats would agree with you there. So in the first two matches, France was 4.59 and 2.95, and then in that last match, they were an abysmal 0.65. So a huge drop off in what they were creating.
Yeah,
potentially.
And also, I mean, they were deserved winners against Denmark, and I thought that was a good performance. But Denmark still created chances against them. So, all of the good teams coming into these knockout stages will have looked at that and thought, okay, you're probably not going to win 1-0 against France. You're going to have to score multiple goals. They probably will score against you, but you can create chances against them. And I think that's why they have to have all of those key players on the pitch all the time, which I think then puts France into that category. Given the heat and the conditions in which this tournament is being played, they have to avoid extra time. Now, this is a nice matchup for them probably to do so, but the sort of cumulative effect of these matches in fairly close proximity to each other and the possible impact of extra time and penalties to a certain degree from a mental fatigue standpoint, they need to try and put matches to bed as early as possible and be able to rest players because they will need all of them for the remainder of this tournament.
And that brings us to the final match of the round of 16, England, Senegal.
Yeah, so this is one where I could theoretically see an upset. I'm definitely not going to say that I think there's I would be amazed if Poland beat France. I'd be amazed if Australia beat Argentina. I wouldn't be amazed if England lost to Senegal. But they're better in every area of the pitch. Over the course of the group stages as a whole, I think you can take a lot of positives from England's performances. In that second half against Wales, they controlled that match so well. The interesting thing to see is going to be who starts. There's obviously a lot of debate in terms of the wide positions. Who plays, what role Jude Bellingham maybe plays in. I thought he was pretty impressive against Wales in the more advanced attacking midfielder role, replacing Mason Mount. I thought he did a very good job in giving him that freedom and permission to kind of roam all over the pitch and get more involved in play. I think he did a great job of that in terms of helping to create chances and maybe even taking a little bit of the emphasis off of Kane to kind of play that connecting role that he often does. So I'll be interested to see if they drop him back into sort of a true central midfield position or use him there. And then also who starts out wide. Because, you had two very impressive performances from Saka and Sterling in the opening match. Less impressive against the USA. Then you had Rashford and Foden, very impressive against Wales. Hadn't done too much up until that point, although hadn't been given a massive chance until then. Ideally, I would like to see Foden and Saka start. I think Rashford is more of a sort of impact substitute. I was speaking to former co-host Sam about this actually not that long ago. I think in the kind of way Eddie Jones, the England rugby coach, refers to players as being like closers. He tries to put, you don't want to have substitutes to feel like they're sort of bit part players in your squad. I think Rashford is more of a kind of a closer for this England team, a player who, as a game gets stretched towards the end, his pace and ability to, to run at teams or to run in behind teams is super valuable. But over the course of 90 minutes, he maybe doesn't consistently impact a match. I also think Saka does more defensively. I think that means that Gareth Southgate's likely to pick him because I think he'll also have one eye on France and the problems that Kylian Mbappe does pose. So he'll be thinking about his wide players and the defensive roles they'll then have to take to kind of drop back and help defensively. I think he'll like the idea maybe of Saka on the right with one eye on Saka playing that same role and helping out with Kylian Mbappe if they progress, like if everything goes to form. It also means I think though Kyle Walker is returning from fitness. I doubt Kyle Walker will play in this match because I'll then want to save Kyle Walker for Mbappe because he's probably one of the few fullbacks on earth who can live with Mbappe. So I think you'll see Trippier back playing.
Is Mbappe a bad roommate?
Well, possibly. but yeah, I think you'll see
pitch.
I think you'll see Trippier back in the starting lineup, and then Kyle Walker probably maybe coming on as a substitute to get just a few more minutes under his belt. And then if England win and if France win, I would then expect to see Kyle Walker starting against France to just have one. I think his role then will just be follow Kylian Mbappe everywhere. But no,
I mean it's a little tough, right? You say Rashford's the closer, but Rashford also, we mentioned Gapco co-leading right now the World Cup with 3 goals. He's co-leading with Rashford as one of the others. So you have someone who's the amount of minutes he's been on the pitch is probably got the the most goals per minute out of everyone that's leading that group in him, Murata, and Gapco. So
yeah,
and Mbappe.
Yeah,
we'll all have 3.
And look, his free kick against Wales was excellent. I think you could maybe be slightly critical of the goalkeeper. I think maybe some goalkeepers save it, but still a very nice free kick. I think his second goal against Wales was a little bit more fortuitous. On another day that doesn't find its way into the back of the net, but he was good against Wales. And look,
you know what, Eddie? Goal scorers, they find a way.
They do, and ultimately
that's part of being a goal scorer is you have that luck somehow. You have that, whether it is luck or it's not luck, you just find a way to get goals in the net.
No, sure, but I mean, I guess you'd say England's problems so far this World Cup do not include having goals scored from players in wide positions. Foden has a goal, Saka has 2 goals, Sterling has a goal, Grealish has a goal, Rashford has 3 goals. The greater concern would be Kane with no goals. People are being very critical of him. I mean, he has 3 assists. I think Kane has been excellent in this. And to me, he was a little bit flat against the USA versus he was very good against Wales and very good against Iran. And I think that's, one of the key differences in terms of the quality of those performances. I think you can tell someone's footballing intelligence. Any England fan who says, we should be dropping Kane is a footballing moron. I think that's an automatic red flag in terms of you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to football. But no, I think...
Yeah, and if you're listening, get the fuck off because we don't want you on this.
No, I mean, look, lots of people say it, right? It's just one of those popular things, including, as we said, Ollie is not a huge fan of Harry Kane, but he does things that very few players in the world can do. And you take, for example, his ball across the goal for Foden's goal against Wales. Like, there's not that many players in the world who play that ball. It looks very easy when you see someone do it because it's just, you just hit the ball across the face of the goal. But that's an extremely difficult skill. It's a lot of awareness in terms of what's going on.
I mean, it was perfect. Anyone but Lukaku could have put that in.
Yeah, Lukaku probably would have tripped over it and then hit his head on the post. But yeah, no.
Eat it.
But those are the areas of debate, for England. And I think it'll be interesting to see what Southgate does. It really will, and what attacking intent he wants to show with this England team. And again, the problem is, we know from Gareth Southgate, and I think England fans had to prepare themselves for it. There's a good chance he shows less attacking intent against Senegal than he maybe should do, because he wants the England team to play in the same way that they're going to play against France. And they won't show a lot of attacking intent against France. So, this could be a frustrating 90 or 120 minutes for England supporters. Hopefully not so frustrating that it ends in disaster. But, I'm still... There's no reason... You get to this stage of the tournament, we've discussed it, when the Euros were going on, people start to, I'm having to listen to England fans say, oh, people are underrating Senegal. This isn't as easy as a match as people think. We should be worried about them, all those sorts of things. Of course, once you get to the knockout stages of a World Cup, every team could beat you if they get either the rub of the green, or you don't play well enough, or they have the matches of their lives. Of course, Senegal could beat England. There's no denying that. But if you can't beat Senegal in the knockout stages of the World Cup, then we're not talking about an England team that we should be expecting to win a World Cup. It's that simple for me. So the expectations should be, we beat Senegal. That those expectations change slightly.
Without Mane as well, right? I mean,
yes.
I know one person doesn't make a team, but that is a big loss.
It's a huge loss. He's one of the best players in the world. It's the same. It's kind of like that Neymar discussion. You remove a slight bit of confidence from the Senegalese team, because otherwise they might have gone into this match otherwise saying they had the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
They can't say
Might
that.
not be wrong.
Yeah. And they can't say that now. So, that's a huge difference. And in terms of the trouble he would have caused for the English defenders. And again, they could surprise England. They could win this match. I'm not saying absolutely no way do England lose this, but I mean, if England lose this, it's going to be hugely disappointing.
Yeah. So, while there was a lot of World Cup chaos in the group stage, you're pretty much playing it to form here. No chaos in the knockout stage so far. I mean, I think I agree with most of the picks. I think maybe the chaos comes from the U.S. I mean, that's a match that is winnable, I think. And, like you said, I think the Switzerland match is another match that could be winnable.
Yeah, if I had to highlight, I would say potentially Portugal, Switzerland, potentially England, Senegal, potentially Netherlands, USA, and potentially Japan, Croatia, just because I don't think Croatia are that good. But yeah, I do think you're talking about, I guess the benefit in some respects for some of these bigger teams now at this stage of the unpredictable group stages is that they are now up against, in some instances, less talented and certainly less experienced international sides. And that should play to their, that should benefit them, right? So, who knows? Surprises can and will happen. But
now, here's my question, Eddie. Do you want to continue on and give me your full bracket? Do you want to risk this? Or do you want to wait until this round of 16 is complete and we reevaluate the next round?
Well, in the interest of time, I guess I won't go through it again. I guess it's worth saying, right? I had Belgium making the semifinals, so that's obviously not going to happen. apart from that, most of the teams I expected to be featuring in like the quarterfinals and the semis are still in, and I don't see too much reason to change my predictions. I had Brazil playing England in the final. That is still very much a possibility. I mean, the test for me there will be um, in a week's time with England France probably.
And then potentially England, Spain, if they
Yes.
survive France.
Yeah, the discussion is now if England, going into the tournament, it felt like they were definitely going to be on the weaker side of the draw. If they won their group, you could maybe say they've ended up on the more difficult side of the draw because of Spain not winning. So that's the difference, but still, you're only looking at. But I don't know. I think, and I think I'll stick with at the moment in England. England, thinking more with my heart, certainly with England. I'll stick with an England Brazil final and Brazil winning, but I might want to see a couple more matches from Brazil, or certainly let's say one more to just see exactly what the impact of no Neymar has on them, because I might shift away from Brazil on that side, and potentially, I guess it then has to be Argentina, but I don't love that.
Yeah, I mean there's a chance Croatia could be in the semifinals again of a major tournament somehow.
Yeah, no, they do. They do get quite favorable draws. I mean, sir, England have obviously benefited from those in consecutive and look, there's this miracle world that Poland knock France out, and then all of a sudden England have, like if you could have an England fan's dream come true, this weekend sees England beating Senegal, Poland beating France, Morocco beating Spain, and all of a sudden the path to the final is right there. It doesn't take a lot, but then every French supporter or Spanish supporter would be saying, "Well, if Senegal could just spring a little bit of a surprise against England, then things look a lot nicer for all of us." So it works both ways.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised you're so timid on the England Senegal match. I mean, I think this favor is much more favorable than, for instance, England even playing the U.S. a week ago.
Um, yeah, I guess. Look, there's a certain. I'm just.
I think you're just trying to dampen your
No, look.
your excitement and expectations.
I'm still putting England in the final, and I will say I'm more confident about this England team coming out of the group stages than I was coming into the World Cup, because I don't see any clear absolute best team. No team's kind of blown my socks off in terms of how they performed. There's no team I've seen where I go, I cannot imagine a scenario in which England beat them. I haven't even seen a team where I think England would have to play their absolute best football in order to beat them. Like I'd say there's scenarios where England could have like a B+ performance and beat everyone in this World Cup. Obviously, not everyone else playing their best football, but you know what I mean. Like these are not. This doesn't come across as the strongest World Cup of all time. That probably is reflected in the upsets in the group stages, but also just I don't think the very best teams are as dominant as maybe as they have been at other tournaments. So in many respects, I'm more confident, but I'm conditioned to expect the worst from the England football team. And over the last two tournaments, they've done a good job of proving that sort of fatalism to be wrong. But this is the type of game.
Well, at least early on.
Yes. And then eventually reverting to form. This is the type of game that over my lifetime, I've seen England lose on a number of occasions, where we're kind of penciling ourselves in for a big match against France, and then, oh, we're not even there. Like it's France Senegal next week. And so, I'm cautiously optimistic, but it feels like, this could be deja vu all over again. So I'm also just leaving that little bit of, kind of some of the negative thoughts in my mind, just so that when the final whistle blows and I'm watching an England team fall to their knees after a disappointing performance, I'm not too stunned by it.
Hey, that might be some people's fantasies.
I think it's a lot of people's fantasies. I think every Welsh supporter out there, every Scottish supporter out there, I know you're going down a different path. I'm not willing to engage in that particular discussion, but obviously there's
Well, you kind of did.
no, there's obviously a lot of people in the world who look forward to England's failure with great anticipation, and which I would like to say, if I'm a Wales supporter, my final thoughts a little bit, I guess, on the group stages in the World Cup so far, I would be so disappointed in the performances that Wales put in, particularly in that the lack of attacking initiative they showed against England. Kind of don't really know what they were playing for. And yes, there was a scenario where the USA and Iran drew, and then Wales were able to get through with a 1-0 victory. And you could say, well, take it to the death, hope that results are going your way, and you sneak a goal. But I think they should have. You try and ride out maybe the initial 15, 20 minutes, and then you need to show some kind of attacking threat, and they showed absolutely nothing, and then just capitulated as that match wore on. And I also think Gareth Bale ultimately has hurt his legacy a little bit with such a poor World Cup. You know, it's Gareth Bale is going to be a very difficult player to explain to future generations. Like, it's going to be this guy who spent long periods of time. He started his career out as a poor left back at Southampton who just sometimes scored spectacular goals. Then he briefly he then went to Spurs and went through some incredible run where I can't remember how many matches it was where Spurs never won while he played. Then somehow transformed from a bad left back into maybe the best attacking player in the world for a moment in time. Went to Real Madrid, had a moment where that all went well, scored some incredible goals, including one of the greatest Champions League final goals of all time, then fell completely out of favor, never played again, was then sort of kept performing for Wales in some big moments, then goes to a World Cup and, honestly, was anonymous. Scored a penalty, but I'm not going to give him, he doesn't get plaudits for converting a penalty, right? And yeah, I genuinely think I could have been on that pitch, and I do not mean this as a compliment to myself. I could have been on that pitch and you would have not noticed a significant difference between my performance and Gareth Bale's.
I love it.
I just need, and again, that is not in any way talking myself up. That is just in pure criticism of how absolutely awful he was. And the fact that he was subbed off at halftime with Wales desperately needing something is testament to that fact, I think.
All right. Well, with that, I think that kind of ends our World Cup
for now. Yeah.
Reaction. Anything else in the world of sports you'd like to touch on?
Not too much in the world of sport, I guess. Obviously, rumors are circulating that we could see a return of Tom Brady to the Patriots. That's going through the rumor mill, and we'll have to see how that plays out. But overall, the world of sports for me, I don't know if you also saw Tyson Fury claimed that he wanted to go back to an old school approach to heavyweight boxing and wants to have between 15 and 20 fights in 2023. In which case we've always debated, what you get in the ring with Tyson Fury. I think we got a chance of getting in the ring with Tyson Fury if he's going to have 20 fights next year, because he's going to run out of people to fight pretty quickly.
Wow. That is, when in an age of athlete, not wanting to, I don't know a nice way to put this, but he's literally going to get his fucking head knocked off.
No, I mean, yeah, when all the data shows that, the recovery time necessary, and it's also one of those things people always credit for, like, oh, the big difference between like boxing and the NFL or rugby is that whereas an NFL or rugby player has to do it every week, a boxer gets to do it and then maybe doesn't do it again for sort of like 5 months. And Tyson Fury said, let me take the NFL approach. Let me do it week in. Let me do it week in, week out. If those guys can do it, I can do it too. I guess it depends who he's fighting.
That's every other week.
Yeah. Maybe he's just going to fight YouTubers and, who knows what he's got in mind when he says 15.
He's going to fight the Paul brothers every other week.
Yeah.
Both of them at once.
It's going to be like a TV series. Just
Tyson's brain versus the Paul brothers.
Yeah, which fails first.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's apart from that, nothing really caught my eye over the last few days.
We usually talk about movies and television as well.
In the world of non-sport, I have a story that has me
Oh,
furious.
has you furious?
Yes. So
Wait. Are you furious because you're Eddie, or or are other people actually furious as well?
so I'm definitely furious because I'm me. At the same time, I think this will make other people furious, I would say. But the EU has approved the fact that they will get rid of the requirement for phones to be on airplane mode on flights so that they can no longer will have to be enforced. So you can use your phone as you wish. I think the goal is within
I've been doing that for decades.
So you say that. I think most people have kind of given up the idea of paying attention to it in terms of using the phone to.
After the Mythbusters episode, I stopped putting my phone on airplane mode.
So yeah, so
thanks, Mythbusters.
Yeah, that seems so smart. But I don't mind the idea of someone, sending emails or text messages or browsing the internet. But this is saying that you'll be able to do absolutely whatever you want with your phone. You will be able to make phone calls
if you have service.
Yeah, but there's a very strong likelihood that you will be, for example, flying over continental Europe. You should have service the entire time. So the idea of being on a plane with someone on the phone, and I know there were the old days where people used to make those ridiculously expensive, like you had the phone and but that was like, I can tolerate you being annoying if I know you're paying $150 a minute to make that phone call. You know what I mean? Like, it's either you're a moron or this is important. Either way. Okay.
I just watched a really good Seinfeld episode where George is hanging out with 3 executives from the Houston Astros, and they call him on the plane, and they're like really drunk. He's like, "You tell those sons of bitches, no New York Yankee is ever going to Houston." Such a good episode.
Well, again,
but yes, you're right. That's okay because like they were probably paying $20 a minute.
Oh, probably more
to yell at George Costanza.
and yes, you can tolerate that. But if you imagine a plane packed full of them, I mean, I regularly bring up my issues with travel and people's poor behavior and lack of respect for everyone else who's traveling with them, and just the general sense of entitlement, right? The idea of people just having their like AirPods in on a flight and just screaming into their AirPods as you're flying along, that seems, I might murder someone on an airplane. I cannot rule out this possibility.
Oh, I'd love to see that. And you know what? Knowing you, with the negative aura you have around you, you will attract people
for sure
who just call like the entire conversation. It's like when you get in an Uber, and there are times where I've taken like 45-minute Ubers, and people have been on the phone with someone else, and half the time they're not even talking, which is even weirder. No, I don't understand that.
No, the Uber drivers who are just on, like, it's like a walkie
on a call.
It's like a walkie,
and you look and it says like 4 hours 30 minutes on call, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
It's
here?
like little kid best friends who just like bought each other walkie talkies. You know what I mean? And they're just like lying in their beds at night, but just like, "Hey Frank, you still awake?" "Yeah, I am." "Oh, cool."
Yeah. Speaking of which, I can't get every reception on the walkie-talkie you gave me. What's going on here?
Well, it's a few thousand miles separates us. I'm not sure they've got technology that's good enough yet, but one day. But yeah, no, I do find that bizarre. And again, also like really annoying. It is annoying to get into an Uber where your driver is on the phone. I don't have phone calls as a passenger unless it is an absolute emergency, or maybe someone calls you and you're on your way to meet them and you just give them the like, "Yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes" kind of thing. But that is super, super rare. I would normally just ignore their phone call, text them, "I'm in the Uber, I'll be there at X time." So if I, as a passenger...
Yeah, but for every nice passenger like you they have passengers like Tim, who God knows what he's doing in the back of an Uber.
Is it okay if I stick a dead body in the back? It's just
What's your policy on bloodstains if they're not my blood?
yeah. No, it's true. Like I get it, and look, it's I'm sure when you're driving around in the middle of the night, it gets boring. And if you told me that that's the difference between him falling asleep mid Uber ride versus being attentive and awake and not driving into the side of like the side of the road, I'll take that, I guess. But I'd prefer no phone call. I don't think that's a lot to ask for from someone.
I thought you were going to say the EU I also saw is either pushing for or have already, I'm not sure, regulations to prevent companies from having multiple different plugs to charge phones. I thought that's where you were going.
No.
Because Apple loves to just make a new
charger, yeah,
adapter plug scenario, and that they were going to put an end to that and make everything, I think, USB-C, I think was the choice, which could be a good thing. But then I don't understand how that works once a better technology comes out. You just never want to switch anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess how fast do we really need our phones to charge is one question you could ask yourself.
Oh, I would love like 5 minutes. It'd be perfect.
Because I mean, my phone now through USB-C, I don't know, directly like into a wall charges in 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
I think mine's a little slower. I'll tell you what, the Whoop is a slow charging system. Someone needs to work on updating the Whoop charging system. If CEO of Whoop, if you're listening, I'm calling you out.
Is this how we get our Whoop sponsorship? A company that is very regularly sponsors podcasts. We're just going to give them criticism.
Great system. I love all the data I get. I hate having to have that thing charged for like 6 hours to charge it.
Yeah. I guess they'd say you just charge it overnight. But then they want you to get your sleep data and stuff too, don't they? Through Whoop, like that. So
yeah, you just it's a little piece that goes on top. You don't have to have actually plugged in. You can charge the piece and then put the piece on, but still you have this like extra bulky piece on your Whoop. Whatever. Another complaint for another day.
Yeah, and someone else's problem to solve. But no, that's my rant for the day. I don't think anything else particularly upset me over the course of this week, which is always good news.
All right. Well, I don't have much. A pretty quiet week. Just gearing up towards the holiday season here. Trying to do like 2 to 3 weeks of being somewhat healthy. Because I know once about December 18th hits, it just all goes downhill from there. So it's kind of this internal fight I have with myself where part of me wants to already just start like getting in that holiday mode where it's like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow after work? Want to get some drinks, celebrate the holidays? But it still seems a little too early.
Yeah. I mean, here, the lights are all out and Paris looks really nice over the holiday period, right? They do a very good job on the streets. Still, the weather hasn't been, it doesn't make you feel as if this is the first week of December. It's starting to get cold now, but still, this is my weekly weather update. And I mean, for you, that must be that's the downside of living in a desert, right? Like it gives you, the holiday spirit must be slightly dampened by the fact that you look out and see a cactus.
Yeah, I mean, the snow is the big one. Where we live in Tucson, it gets cold at night. I mean, it gets down to the 40s at night.
Yeah, cold at night. What's it during the day?
Like 60, 70, 60 to 70.
I don't associate 70 degrees with Christmas.
I do now.
Well, yeah.
I fucking love it.
But then I also think I was spoiled slightly in that respect. Like, living for a sizable chunk of my childhood in Salt Lake City, I think that really put you in the like Christmas spirit because we would have several feet of snow every Christmas. It looked like this sort of ideal, like postcard or painting of like
Lifetime movie.
Yeah, of like what does Christmas look like? It's like this is what it looks like. There's snow everywhere. There's it was perfect. And now I never get that anymore. So that is slightly disappointing.
Doesn't disappoint me. I would trade all the snow in the world to be able to just go to an outdoor patio in the middle of December, have some beers, hang out, go on a hike.
I don't totally disagree with you, but maybe for like the 4 days around Christmas itself, I do. You know what I mean? Like if I could somehow, you could have some weird microclimate where just December 22nd to December 28th, it suddenly transformed into a winter wonderland. I think I'd be in favor of that. But, December 15th, I don't need snow on the ground.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Arizona is home to the biosphere too, so maybe I can ask them to make a microclimate.
Do people still live in that?
No, it's now a research facility.
Yeah, okay.
The University of Arizona half owns it.
Okay, because I watched a documentary once about the people who like went and lived in it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And just started banging each other and then left in like 2 weeks.
Much scientific.
They lasted like 4 days.
Much scientific progress was made. Oh, you know what we figured out? We figured out if you lock some people in a house for a while, eventually they will have sex with each other. This is what we've determined.
Well, what's even better is you determine if you lock them in somewhere and tell them they have 6 months or like a very long time in there, they just instantly start having orgies.
I mean, I guess you could say that's a good glimpse into what the end of humanity will look like. We really need to.
What a failed experiment! It's really fun though because you can actually take the tour of the biosphere too, and they have 2 tours. They have the one tour this is everything here, and this is what we've done, and we have this climate and that climate, and then tour 2 is you've seen the movies or read the books about the experiment. Here's how bad it was, and here's what really happened. And it's just like from the second day, they're like smuggling stuff in. They last like 48 hours, and people are like, I need a Milky Way.
I mean, what it really shows you, right, is like you're a huge Matt Damon fan. Basically, The Martian, you stick one other person up there with him, and it's just sex.
Game over.
It's just sex until he dies. He never grows potatoes. Like that's just like never happens.
It's a horticulturist Pornhub fantasy.
He just never even develops that. He just goes, I can probably survive for the next 5 weeks with my current supplies. We'll just have sex for 5 weeks and then we'll just die. That's okay.
Just call it.
Yeah,
just call it.
That's all right. I can survive this. Oh wait, it's just me. Oh, I better find a way to grow potatoes on Mars.
Let's science this shit up.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess with that Matt Damon reference, we'll call it a day.
All right. See ya.
Cheerio.